But I want you to understand that if you don't read these stories, you won't understand the context. This is on page 7. The slave trade on the east coast of Africa is at present almost confined to the districts of Quilamain and Sofala. I don't even know. Paris between France and Britain. There's an 1814, another treaty in 1814 between all of the Netherlands, then striking in enslavement. They tell you who they've been enslaving, family. Read the treaties. Brother Dane Calloway would like you to believe there is no proof of Africans being enslaved. That's what he would like you to believe. I'm giving you all of, that's only 4. I have 16. Let's go faster. 5, records of war between Africans and European nations over enslavement, and records of war between European nations over enslavement. Take a look at this one. Some of you should remember the sinking of the Spanish Armada in 1588. You may have noticed that there was a point where the Portuguese were the prime enslaver, and then what happened is the Spanish then took that role, and then when the Spanish Armada, by the way, they were trying to kill the head of the UK, and it backfired. When the Spanish Armada was actually destroyed, now the Spanish are no longer the dominant force of enslavement. This is when the British come forward and become the dominant force of enslavement. And so we have a record of the fact that their ships were destroyed, and that now the British are saying, well, we'll be able to enslave more. This is in 1588. So you have to understand that they're records of this. And you also have records of African nations who fought against enslavement. You should know the name Nzinga. You can't go into an African-American community in the United States and not find someone named Nzinga. When I used to work with students, I would meet many students named Nzinga. But sometimes I'd say, do you know who you're named after? No, I have to explain to them that Nzinga was a powerful queen who was a master strategizer. She struggled sometimes. Sometimes she would have to have an agreement with the Portuguese for enslavement because she believed they were too strong. And then when their position was weaker, she would break the treaty and fight against enslavement. She would tell people who had been enslaved and escaped, come to our nation, there's refuge here. Send her soldiers to stop enslavement on her borders. She fought desperately. And we know a lot about Queen Nzinga, Ngola Mbande. We know a lot about her from this period of the early 1600s. And I want you to also understand that there's this major event that occurs that the Portuguese talk about with her. And one of the times that she is going to negotiate a treaty, she's been told where she's going to meet the Portuguese, and they get there early and make sure that they have seats and there are no more seats for her. So they say, you see this mat on the floor? You can just sit there. Because they're trying to show her that they are the powerful ones and she must sit at their feet. So what does Nzinga do? Nzinga looks at them and she beckons to one of her servants. He comes over and he bends over and he becomes her seat for the entire meeting. Do you see this etching? A European drew that because they were so amazed that she did that. So while she did not have a seat, she had a throne. And they recognized that she was more powerful than them. That's Queen Nzinga. That's Queen Nzinga. Now, there's some people who say, well, she was also an enslaver. She was living in a very difficult time. It is clear that she had problems with enslavement. But she had to make some really difficult choices to try to keep her nation of Angola intact. It was very hard. Whenever she has a chance, she fights against enslavement. It's clear how she feels. But the Portuguese are very, very powerful, and they expect her to be part of the enslavement trade. Okay.